You know what? I'm sitting here watching these fights and I see another eye poke and then another one. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell's going on here? We've got referees who are supposed to be the best in the business, and fighters are getting their eyes gouged out every other weekend. It's Saturday night, the main event is about to start, and I'm in the back watching the monitors with my team. The crowd is electric, the production crew is ready, everything looks perfect for a great night. Then boom, eye poke in the first 30 seconds. The crowd goes from roaring to dead silence. The fighter is on the ground holding his eye, and you can feel the energy just drain out of the entire building. The referee is looking around like he needs guidance, but I can't help him make that call from back here. All I can do is watch another big fight turn into a mess. Let me be clear about something right up front. I don't believe most of these eye pokes are intentional, but intention doesn't matter when a guy can't see out of his right eye for 6 months after taking a fight. The Tom Aspinall situation with Cyril Gane, that was a double eye poke that ended a heavyweight championship fight in Abu Dhabi. You think I wanted that to happen? You think the fans who traveled halfway around the world paid to watch 15 seconds of action before the whole thing falls apart? I was cage side for that one, watching Tom go down, watching him try to explain to the referee that he literally couldn't see. People in the arena are booing because they think he's looking for a way out, but I'm looking at his face and I can see something's really wrong. His eye is swelling up, he's in genuine pain. We're talking about someone's vision, someone's ability to see their kids' faces clearly. That goes way beyond winning or losing a fight. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. Every time one of these eye poke situations happens, everyone wants to blame the fighter or the referee. But the real question is, what are we doing as an organization to prevent this stuff from happening in the first place? The blame game is easy. Point fingers, assign fault, move on to the next event. But that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't help the fighter who's sitting in a hospital getting his retina examined by specialists. That doesn't help the referee who's getting crucified online by keyboard warriors who've never officiated a fight in their lives. And it sure as hell doesn't help me when I have to get on a call with broadcast partners explaining why another main event ended in controversy. Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad at UFC Fight Night 187. Edwards throws that high kick, catches Belal right in the eye, and the fight's over. Belal's on the ground crying from the pain, literally crying, and people online are calling him soft, saying he's looking for a way out. But anyone who's ever taken a finger to the eye knows that pain is no joke. The kind of sharp, stabbing pain that makes grown men who fight for a living break down. And patterns in this business, that's where you lose credibility. That's where people start questioning whether we're actually running a legitimate sport or just putting on a show where anything goes. The athletic commissions start asking harder questions. The insurance companies start looking at our claims more carefully. When Yair Rodriguez poked Jeremy Stephens in the eye 15 seconds into their main event in Mexico City, thousands of fans went home disappointed. They bought tickets, took time off work, arranged babysitters, some flew in from other countries, and they got 15 seconds of action before everything fell apart. That's not the experience we're trying to create. The glove design has been an issue for years. We know this. The old gloves practically encourage fingers to extend forward. It's basic physics. The padding is on the knuckles and the back of the hand, but the fingers, they're basically exposed. And when you're throwing a jab or reaching out to establish distance, those fingers are leading the way. But changing gloves isn't a decision you make lightly when you've got hundreds of fighters under contract and millions of dollars already committed to specific equipment deals. I've sat in meetings with glove manufacturers and biomechanics experts. Everyone has an opinion about how to fix the problem, curve the fingers more, add padding to the fingertips, use different materials. But you change the glove design and suddenly you're asking elite athletes to readjust muscle memory that took years to develop. The Trevor Whitman gloves we tested showed promise in reducing eye pokes, but then you got other issues. Do they affect grappling? Do they change the way punches land? We brought in fighters to test different prototypes. Some loved them for striking, others said they couldn't feel submissions properly. When people talk about eye pokes, they always bring up Jon Jones. And yeah, Jones has had his issues with eye pokes. The Daniel Cormier fights, the Alexander Gustafsson fight, several others over the years. People act like he's doing it on purpose, like he wakes up in the morning planning to poke guys in the eye. But you know what? He's also one of the greatest fighters who ever lived. I've known Jon for over a decade. I've watched him train. I've seen him with his family. I've been through his ups and downs, his mistakes, his comeback attempts. The idea that he's deliberately trying to injure opponents with eye pokes is ridiculous. Is his fighting style sometimes reckless with hand positioning? Maybe. Does his reach advantage mean his fingers end up in places they shouldn't? Possibly. But intentional? Come on. The problem with Jon isn't that he's malicious. The problem is that he's so good at everything else that people focus on the eye pokes because that's the only thing they can criticize. He's undefeated except for that weird disqualification against Matt Hamill for illegal elbows. He's finished legends like Shogun Rua, Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida. He's dominated 2 weight classes. But people want to talk about eye pokes. So do we throw out greatness because of a foul that might or might not be intentional? Do we change rules that have worked for 25 years because of a few bad outcomes? Do we start penalizing fighters for having long reach and using it effectively? That's the conversation nobody wants to have publicly. Behind closed doors, sure, we talk about it all the time. But publicly, it sounds like we're making excuses for fighters who commit fouls. And I'm not making excuses for anyone. Fouls are fouls. But context matters when you're trying to figure out how to prevent them in the future. The referee situation is more complicated than people realize. These guys are making split-second decisions in real time while 2 elite athletes are trying to hurt each other. They're not watching slow-motion replays. They see what they see, and they have to make a call. Big John McCarthy used to tell me that being a referee in MMA is like being a cop, a judge, and a doctor all at the same time. You're responsible for fighter safety, rule enforcement, and determining the difference between legal and illegal techniques, all while staying out of the way of 2 guys who are trying to finish each other. But the inconsistency is killing us. One referee takes a point immediately after the first eye poke. Another referee gives 3 warnings. Another referee stops the fight for 5 minutes while the fighter recovers. There's no standard operating procedure that makes sense to anyone watching at home. Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling at UFC 259 when Yan threw that illegal knee. Clear foul, no question. Sterling went down, couldn't continue. Yan was disqualified. But then people online are calling Sterling an actor. The guy took a knee to the head while he was grounded. That's not acting. But contrast that with other situations where fighters have taken similar fouls and tried to continue. Anthony Smith against Jon Jones when Jon threw those illegal elbows. Smith said he could continue even though he was clearly hurt. The fight went on, Jones won, and Smith got criticized for not taking the disqualification victory. So what's the standard? If you get fouled and can't continue, you're acting. If you get fouled and do continue, you're stupid for not taking the easy win. The Nevada State Athletic Commission, California, Texas, they all have slightly different protocols for handling eye pokes. In one state, the referee might be more inclined to take immediate action. In another state, they might give more warnings. But the fighters are the same, the gloves are the same, the rules should be the same. And that gets even more complicated when we go international. The UK has different standards than France. Australia handles fouls differently than Brazil. We're trying to maintain consistent standards across 40-plus countries, but every regulatory body thinks they know better than everyone else. When a referee makes a controversial call in Las Vegas, it affects how people perceive our events in London or Sydney or anywhere else we go. One bad decision in one jurisdiction creates problems for us everywhere else we operate. The problem is that once you start making exceptions, you open the door to manipulation. And I'm not saying fighters are faking eye injuries, but in a sport where every advantage matters, some guys are going to test the boundaries. We've experimented with different glove designs. We've brought in biomechanics experts, sports medicine doctors, even engineers who design safety equipment. Most of the time, it comes down to range management and defensive positioning. Guys who keep their hands extended are going to make more eye contact, whether they mean to or not. The training aspect is something we can't directly control, but we can influence. When fighters come into the UFC, they're already fully formed as athletes. They've been training for years, sometimes decades, with certain habits. Changing the way someone positions their hands in a fight, that's not something that happens overnight. I've watched training footage from some of the top camps around the world. American Kickboxing Academy, American Top Team, Jackson Wink MMA, TriStar Gym in Montreal. The best coaches are already teaching their fighters to keep their fingers closed, to punch with proper form, to avoid extended finger contact during grappling exchanges. But old habits die hard, especially when you're under pressure. Firas Zahabi at TriStar has been preaching proper hand positioning for years. Greg Jackson and Mike Winklejohn have developed specific drills to train fighters out of bad habits. But when you're in there getting punched in the face, muscle memory takes over. The techniques you've practiced 10,000 times in the gym are what come out under stress. Some fighters have made the adjustment successfully. Look at someone like Alexander Volkanovski. Rarely, if ever, has eye poke issues because his boxing fundamentals are so clean. Same with guys like Max Holloway or Jose Aldo. Their hand positioning is always textbook, even in the chaos of a fight. It shows that proper training can minimize these incidents when fighters and coaches commit to doing things the right way. A lot of eye pokes happen during scrambles, not during striking exchanges, but during transitions from standing to ground, or when someone's trying to establish underhooks, or when guys are fighting for wrist control against the cage. Those are chaotic moments where precise hand positioning is almost impossible to maintain. But we can work with referee training programs. We can establish clearer guidelines about when to take points, when to stop action, when to allow fighters to recover. Mark Goddard, Herb Dean, these guys have seen thousands of fights. They know the difference between accidental contact and reckless behavior. The referee training seminars we run now include hours of video breakdown focused specifically on eye poke scenarios, different angles, different speeds, different contexts. We bring them to the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas, where they can practice making decisions in controlled environments. We're even experimenting with virtual reality training for referees. They can experience different fight scenarios from inside the octagon perspective, see how eye pokes look in real time from the referee's angle. The technology isn't perfect yet, but it's getting close to giving us a tool that can standardize training across different countries and commissions. Looking back over the years, some of the worst eye poke situations have happened in the biggest fights. The fighter who gets poked loses the biggest opportunity of their career. The fighter who does the poking gets blamed for something that might have been completely accidental. The referee gets criticized no matter what decision they make. I've always believed that rules exist to protect fighters, not to punish them. But when the rules become so complicated that nobody understands them, or so inconsistently applied that similar situations get different outcomes, then we've failed as an organization. The Nevada State Athletic Commission has one interpretation of what constitutes a flagrant eye poke. California has a slightly different interpretation. New York might handle it completely differently. But we're trying to build a global sport with consistent standards, and that's impossible when every jurisdiction has its own approach to the same problem. If you're just discovering mixed martial arts, you might think eye pokes are just part of the game. But they're not supposed to be. They're fouls. The challenge is enforcing those rules fairly while still allowing the sport to flow naturally. We don't want to turn MMA into a stop-and-start affair where the referee is constantly interrupting action to check for fouls. The beauty of mixed martial arts is its fluidity, the way different techniques flow together seamlessly. But we also can't ignore fighter safety in the name of entertainment. The referee training programs we're working with now are more comprehensive than they've ever been. We're using virtual reality to put referees in simulated fight scenarios. We're trying to give them the tools to make better decisions under pressure. The fighter safety aspect is what keeps me up at night. We've had guys who've suffered serious eye injuries that affected their careers long term. Michael Bisping fought for years with vision problems after taking damage to his eye from Vitor Belfort. When someone's livelihood depends on their physical abilities, and those abilities get compromised by an accidental foul, that's a problem that goes way beyond just the sport itself. Bisping never complained about it publicly. He never made excuses. But I know it affected him. I know he had surgeries. I know he dealt with complications that most people never heard about. He had detached retinas, glaucoma, multiple procedures to try to save his vision, and he kept fighting at the highest level for years after that injury. That's the kind of toughness that makes this sport special, but it's also the kind of situation we should be doing everything possible to prevent. Other fighters have dealt with similar issues. Alan Belcher had a detached retina that affected his career trajectory. Yair Rodriguez has had eye problems. These aren't just temporary inconveniences. They're potentially career-ending injuries that can affect a person's quality of life for decades. We're looking at everything. New glove designs that curve the fingers more naturally, better referee positioning during fights, clearer guidelines for when to take points versus when to issue warnings. The One Championship gloves have shown some promise in reducing eye pokes because of the way they curve the fingers. The technology exists to make this better. We have high-speed cameras that can show exactly what happened from multiple angles. We have instant replay systems that can help referees make more informed decisions. The question is how to integrate that technology without disrupting the flow of a live fight. The cost of implementing replay technology across every venue we use is massive. We're talking about millions of dollars in equipment, training, and personnel. But more importantly, we're talking about changing the fundamental rhythm of how fights are officiated. Every stoppage for replay review kills momentum, affects fighter psychology, changes the entire dynamic of what's happening in there. Nobody wants to turn a 3-round fight into a 4-hour affair because we're stopping to review every potential foul. But for serious eye pokes, especially in title fights or main events, maybe it makes sense to allow referees to use replay assistance. The NFL does it. The NBA does it. But those sports have natural breaks in action that we don't have. But here's what I keep coming back to. The fighters themselves want this problem solved as much as we do. The competitive integrity of the sport depends on both guys being able to perform at their best. Some people think we should just accept eye pokes as part of the game, but that's not how I see it. MMA is supposed to be about finding out who the better fighter is under controlled conditions. The changes we're making now won't eliminate every eye poke that happens in the future, but they should make them less frequent and less severe when they do occur. At the end of the day, I want every fight to end with a clear winner and loser based on fighting ability, not because someone couldn't see out of one eye. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend we have all the answers. The eye poke problem is complex, and it's going to take time to fix properly, but what I can promise is that we're taking it seriously. We're investing in better equipment, better training, better protocols. We're working with the best people in the business to find solutions that actually work. The fans deserve better than what they've been getting. The fighters deserve better, and frankly, the sport deserves better. We've come too far to let something like this hold us back. This isn't just about preventing eye pokes anymore. This is about proving that mixed martial arts can evolve, can get better, can solve its problems without losing what makes it special. That's what separates us from every other combat sport out there. We're willing to acknowledge when something isn't working and commit the resources necessary to fix it.